Hello, my name is Mayor Watt. I run ohmTown. That's that right there. I have to go through this pretty quick. Again, life as mayor is pretty tough, and I have a lot of meetings that I have to attend to, and I have one immediately after this. So I'm going to try and get it in under an hour and save you time and try not to soapbox too much. That said, ohmTown is a news aggregation site that filters hundreds of articles every day, probably thousands at this point, into various categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. I use this in my daily life. That's why it was created. It facilitates my ability to stay aware of what's happening in the world around me, and I utilize it to advise people on a daily basis. So I don't just manage and run ohmTown. I live there. And with that in mind, let's get into today's news. The first article is in the Daily News Show channel, which this is what's the name of the show, but it's also a category over at ohmTown.com. An enormous inspiration. More than 30 Starbucks locations have voted to unionize. We're not going to let billionaire union busters stand in our way, said one Starbucks employee. And that's all part of the whole great resignation and anti-work kind of community that has formed over the last couple of years. People are becoming more empowered and simply saying, look, I'm worth more. I need more. While you are making billions, I am languishing. And inflation is definitely going to highlight that. So really, the upper echelon of corporations and enterprise in general is going to have to take less and give more to the working class. Because they're the boots on the ground. They are the ones that are making everything a reality, and regardless of surviving attrition, so to speak, and becoming the upper echelon, or coming into money and power and influence, the reality is that there are a lot of people that are being negatively impacted by profiteering and greed and not giving back to society. Although there are some that do, and many others that simply take. With that in mind, this is an article over at commondreams.org, and they go into pretty good detail. Sometimes the article doesn't quite align with my ideology entirely, but it's not necessary to do so for me to appreciate what the content is. In this particular case, Jake Johnson writes an article about these unionizing Starbucks employees, and to me it's odd that people identify by their employer. But we are almost conditioned to say, this is who I am, and list who we work for. In this case, it's an important context, and you'll hear me say this regularly throughout my episodes. So I'm not going to get onto a soapbox about this, but it says, on Monday, workers at Starbucks shop in township of Hopewell, New Jersey, voted unanimously to unionize and join Workers United, an affiliate of the Service Employees International Union. The store was the 30th Starbucks location to unionize in the United States, and the first in New Jersey. And with many, many more Starbucks out there, I will not be surprised if many more start to unionize. And I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to use it as a metric to predict where social movements are, where more liberal processes are, because to me, there are organizations that form around being more and more inclusive and giving power back to the employees. And for whatever reason, we've groomed our society in the United States and maybe elsewhere. I don't like speaking about another country, without giving great leeway as to the interpretation from my perspective. But here in the States, we've groomed ourselves into being an at-will kind of country where you can quit when you want to and you can be fired when they want to fire you, and there's literally no rationale as to why that is given, unless you're part of a protected class or you feel that you've been slighted in some way. But in all instances, you are required to bring a lawsuit to find out. Well, when you're fired, you can't do that. Usually it's pretty expensive to bring up equal employment opportunity complaint. Well, really, the main benefactor of at will is the employer, because the employer can always get more people to work, but it puts a downward pressure on you basically capitulating to the employer should they want to terminate you, fire you. Terminate is so final, but anyway, yeah, I'm not necessarily a big fan of being fired for no reason, and I encourage employers to let the employee know, but there's a lot of liability in there because you just may not like it. What I'm doing, for instance. You don't like me talking about this stuff, so I get fired. So go over to commondreams.org and read this article. I'm going to have to continue on. The next article is over in the Daily News Show again. Elon, there are rules. The EU says Twitter must comply with new Digital Services Act. One day after Elon Musk took over Twitter, a top European regulator gave the world's richest man a reality check about how they will respond if he loosens platforms' content moderation policies. In response to this, it was basically stated that he'll follow the EU rules, but I'm sure that it won't be an easy thing for him to do, and he might even be resistant to the EU. It's a great picture over at Common Dreams of Elon, kind of like, are you seeing this crap? He rules. So this article is written by Kenny Stansel over at Common Dreams again, and it says here, the European Union on Tuesday warned Elon Musk that Twitter, now owned by Tesla chief executive, must comply with the bloc's new law that aims to halt the online spread of hate speech and other illicit content, or risk substantial fines or a continent-wide ban, possibly foreshadowing a global regulatory fight over the social media platform. Pardon me. So yeah, Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion, but leveraged quite a bit of wealth. I'm not sure of the full expanse of who all is involved in it, but now it's private, and with that, information goes dark, and there are fewer people that are able to talk about it publicly, whatever goes on behind these closed doors, and I am not a fan of that. When there are a great number of people utilizing a service, I prefer it being publicly held and discussed openly. Even Twitch. Twitch is actually a wholly owned subsidiary of Amazon, and the machinations are sporadically public, and its profit or loss are entirely not disclosed in SEC filings. So even here, now there are rumors about what might be coming down the pike from Twitch. And I'm one of those who are trying to become affiliate and then eventually partner. And I'm doing this as a side gig until some future date where I can do it full time. That would be wonderful. But it really all depends on the ability to do that here on Twitch within the framework that Twitch dictates. And I've said this before in my previous episodes. If you have to rely on a single source, that is the weakest link in your strategy. Regardless of how strong your relationship is, the plug can be pulled at any time and your ambition drained immediately. Either like a light switch and the lights go out, or like water down a drain, poof, it's gone. So let's continue on. The next article is in the Word in Tech. Twitter reassures advertisers that Musk won't make the platform more of a toxic hellhole than it already is. With any amount of anonymity, it becomes a toxic hellhole. That has actually translated into real world hellholes where people feel empowered to create distrust and anger or outright hatred, etc., because they think that free speech means that you can be a complete tool. Free speech means that you're immune from, or you should be immune from, government control, but not societal results. So people who complain about cancel culture don't seem to realize that whatever, you read the room. Whatever it is that you're doing and society doesn't like it, when you're public, then all of society will respond in kind. And it's not really cancel culture. It's trying to stop you from spreading hate or out and out lies, etc. And think of it as going to a bar and being a complete tool at the bar. Nobody's going to want to sit next to you. Nobody's going to share a beer with you. And if somebody does, it's probably going to be a lunatic just like you. This article is over at The Verge, written by James Vincent. And he also says Musk's free speech plans could unleash a wave of unpleasant content. And apparently several people have already left publicly the Twitter platform because now it is behind closed doors. I will probably not ever use Twitter as a social element, but we shall see. Let's continue on. Again, I have a meeting that's immediately after this. The next article is in Smack Talk. Apple MacBook sales continue to grow. PC sales down. New research claims that global PC shipments were down 4.3% in Q1 2022 compared to the same period in 2021, but MacBook sales were up by 8%. This latest finding from Counterpoint Research does not break out any difference between MacBook Air and MacBook Pro. So, as far as I understand it, that is because there are constrained PC parts, but Apple has the ability to do its own fabrication and limit its impact by supply chain issues. And it also secures things at a higher end and costs more. So while it continues to grow, it's at a reasonable level compared to PC sales and the diaspora of PC resellers, manufacturers, etc. It's more diluted and there's more competition and the supply chain just fell apart. That is my understanding of it. William Gallagher may say something else in the Apple Insider article, but it says here, let's see, Counterpoint Research says that HP was hit by a weakening demand for Chromebooks. I agree. Chromebooks are ill-suited for many areas wherein you need greater computing power and the ability to install applications that aren't app-centric or web-based. However, the research firm also attributes to overall drop in sales to component shortages and demand uncertainties caused by the coronavirus. So pretty much what I said. Let's continue on. The next article is over in the Daily News Show channel. Billionaires do not give anything to society, they take from it. The rich do not compete, they destroy competition. The rich do not create wealth, they accumulate it. The rich do not create knowledge, they kidnap it. The rich do not create ideas, they demonize them. So I'm going to click this link, and it's going to take us over to commondreams.org. And this is where I lean into my previous statements about this. Common Dreams tends to use titles and brief snippets that are, I don't know, inflammatory. It's, for lack of a better term, inflammatory. I think that billionaires do compete, but they are immune from personal impact of that competition. They can spin up a business and not feel the impact because it's only a couple of $1 million to spin up a small business and then get some investors, and then they personally capitalize on it year after year. And even if it does die on the vine, they've never lost anything because they still drain a draw from it as the executive suite of the company or owner of the company. They still draw. So when something falls apart, it's all of the employees and stuff. So they do compete. It's just beyond arm's length, and they're not personally impacted by it. Other than the reputation. Oh, another business down. But there are, our former president had many companies just implode, but is still a multimillionaire because of generational wealth and money begetting money. A lot of people refuse to acknowledge that money begets money. Whereas when you're a small business person or in a startup area, performance builds money. That value there has to be there. Otherwise, consumers won't flock to it. But money, all you have to do is invest it, and it will beget money as long as the workers in the company that you're investing in actually do their job. But you don't become a billionaire by having compassion and lower margins because you're actually paying your employees a responsible, reasonable, humanistic rate. No, you pay all of those workers as little as possible so that you can maximize personal profit. The rest of this is actually pretty inflammatory as well. They don't create wealth, they accumulate it, yes. But that, again, is because of the processes. Wealth begets wealth. And so they can just keep on accumulating it. If you add up everything that's in the stock market at its value, yeah, I'll actually do it. And we can talk about it later at some later date. But I'm going to have to keep moving on. I'm going to make today a very short show. The next article is over in the Daily News Show again. Sanders warns against massive congressional bailout for the Bezos Space Company. Again, public burden, private profit. Public money is going to bail out other corporations. Meanwhile, there are people that are languishing behind student debt that they took on just as willingly as companies take on their burdens. But you're going to end up with the possibility that public money is going to be used to bail out a company. And just like public money made SpaceX possible, the value add from SpaceX had ultimately turned out positive, but that was a risk that others decided to take. Well, I think that risk should be leveraged to delete student loans and equalize the inequality that exists right now between the private citizens who are paying into these funds and the public money that taxpayers are going to watch get spent on some other company getting bailed out. It's basically public risk and public money being given to private profits, and they're going to bail them out. So again, this is over at Common Dreams, and I agree with this one. This is a Jake Johnson article. And it says Senator Bernie Sanders took to the pages of The Guardian on Friday to invie against, I guess. I've never even heard that term. Pardon me. Learn something new every day. Against legislation currently before Congress that, if approved, would provide billionaire Jeff Bezos' spaceflight company with a lucrative NASA contract to build a moon lander. This happened with SpaceX, and it'll probably be claimed that, well, if you did it for SpaceX, then you can do it for another billionaire's project. Put your billions in and be done with it. Put your skin in the game. We time and time again, we've bailed out and subsidized millionaires and billionaires. Give it to more people who have ideas and not already have the millions that can make it possible. The next article, because I just have to continue on. Today is not a good day for going deep into articles and soapboxing. So this next article is over in the Band of Bezel channel. Hey Hodinkee, what can surprise you when you think you've seen everything? And Hodinkee is kind of a watch website, and they've got podcasts, and they've got all kinds of information about watches in the sector. And so here is a watch. It's an article about what can surprise you if you've seen everything. Finally, a viewer has written to ask our host, when was the last time that he was surprised by a watch? And a keen question, a deep cut, because after several decades, you'll figure you've seen it all, and then you realize you haven't. I just wanted to see what the content of this was, and that right there is a really neat watch, but I'm not sure what that is. This week, we have a wide-ranging spectrum of questions. A reader who's head over heels in love with the IWC Mark, 16? Wonders what other watches there are out there that'll scratch the same itch but aren't Mark Series IWC Pilots watches. Interesting. Follow that link. Go check it out. It's a video, so I don't play it in my stream. I'll leave it up to you. I tend to try and drive traffic over to the source, and not just use it wholesale here on Twitch and even at ohmTown. I'd rather you go over and utilize the website that the tease was sourced from. But I'd like to talk about it at a later date here in chat. Maybe I can start doing a nighttime show as well. The next article is over in Stock Marketeers. Economic report. GDP may have shrunk in the first quarter, but not because U.S. economy was bad. It says the U.S. economy likely laid an egg in the first quarter based on the official scorecard for growth known as gross domestic product. But look past the headline numbers, analysts say, and the economy appears to have been fairly strong. Maybe. So this is actually an article that was published yesterday, but then modified, and it shows up in the last 24 hours. GDP seen growing just 1% or worse. So if it's a big goose egg, fine, we're static. And that's good. If it's declining, then you're ending up in recession. If this continues, you're in deeper trouble. And all of those billionaires and millionaires that are out there in paper form are going to try and liquidate their assets, further driving down the stock market, basically burying business profitability. People start getting fired, businesses close down, etc., etc. It's a downward spiral, but you can't have the constant growth at 5, 10, 15% in companies. You have to lower the prices. You have to have a realistic valuation. Just because there's more money in the system, it's all being consolidated in the people that are the drivers And the reason they're the drivers is because they have money. If it wasn't for public money, I don't think Tesla and SpaceX would exist in their current state. If it wasn't for subsidies and whatnot, I don't think that fuel would be priced at what it is, and then you don't have the profiteering at that level, because they would have to lower their prices and lower their salaries to be effective in selling the product to people. Nobody's going to pay, $15 a gallon. But at least we would have realistic numbers for the average population. I see all of these numbers and I wonder, the only way it could possibly be this way is because large amounts of money are subsidizing the lowering of prices. But I still have to charge the real full value for the products and services that I make and sell, or the services I provide. So I think that it says here, the forecast, the U.S. economy slowed to an annual 1% rate within the first quarter from a sizzling 6.9 at the end of 2021. I just think that now is because we're all opening it up, we are profiteering now, and we just haven't found that bulk rate where people are tired of this and refuse to actually use the money that they might have. And I really think that it's a myth that there's a lot of people that have money sitting around because of 2 years of pandemic. I really doubt that. Everybody still had bills. Everybody still had to get food. Everybody still had to buy clothes and whatnot. They just didn't go out to the same places. Yeah, we still spend. That's how you had record profits. You can't have great storage of wealth across the board and then say that you've got, gangbusters profits. The next article is over in Bead Baby, how to make printed wood jewelry using nail foil. Again, I like to promote small businesses, websites, and makers. And this is a website created by Pearl Blay, aka the Beading Gem. If you go to beadinggem.com, you'll be able to see more of it. This is kind of a how-to about how to make jewelry, printed jewelry on wood. It's really interesting and it's easy. This is such an easy solution that almost anybody can make it. And heck, you can buy my laser if you want. I'm looking to change it up. So I've got a Glowforge sitting in my home lab. So come on over, check it out, get in touch. At any rate, let's continue on. The next article is over in Hatch Ideas. It has to do with Bitcoin. Bitcoin adopted as legal tender by African country, the second to do so after El Salvador. Now the Central African Republic is taking on Bitcoin as legal tender. I don't agree. I don't think that it should. Bitcoin is an abstracted concept, and so it has no inherent value. It only has value because it's pegged to other currencies. And to me, it screams money laundering capabilities, because you can take money from somewhere else, convert it into Bitcoin, and then translate it out by doing an exchange into currency in some other country, and there's no track. There's no nothing. Again, the only people that are cheerleading this are the people that are already in it or have the means to benefit from it, because nobody is buying Bitcoin at $60,000 US dollars. And the only reason why it's worth $60,000 US dollars is because it's pegged to the US dollar. The US dollar has inherent value. It is built off of the GDP. Whereas Bitcoin is just a fear of missing out meme that might have the ability to be utilized by somebody who wants to try and get in on the Bitcoin kinetic energy. But you don't go out and buy bubblegum with Bitcoin. I think that it is potentially an issue for governments. Not necessarily for private industry, because hell, they'll take whatever they can. But I'm going to continue on. There's a whole lot more to it. Context really does matter, and I can't be pithy about these articles. So come and check it out, and we can talk at another date. I hope to expand my hours. They just won't be during normal business hours, because I'm always wrapped up in meetings. The next article is over in the Continuity Report. Wallace and Gromit step into virtual reality with Aardman, Atlas V, and MetaQuest. Wallace and Gromit, the cult British stop-motion comedy franchise created by Nick Park of Aardman Animations, is set for a virtual reality makeover. Aardman is partnering with MetaQuest and Paris-based banner Atlas V to create an interactive, narrative-led, single-player VR experience which will follow the new adventures of Wallace and Gromit. This is an article over at Variety, written by Elsa Kesslessy, and it will be called The Grand Getaway, and it'll be a VR experience that will revolve around Wallace and Gromit's holidays and will launch in 2023 in the Oculus store from MetaQuest. Ta-da! Again, well, it doesn't really matter. That's some news. I'll just say that. Kind of in a message that can only be described as trying to normalize that, well, everybody has it, so it doesn't really matter. This is one of the articles that I don't agree with. Regardless of the fact that it is true, but I don't like the way the message exists. I haven't even read the article. I just know that this is sort of a message that is getting sent out quite a bit since the data point existed. I'm being cagey about it because I just want to talk about it for a minute. This is in the Mobile channel. It says, most of us have had COVID, and this is a New York Times article, and it says 3 in 5 Americans have been infected. What does that mean for immunity and for the future of the pandemic? And people are using this as, well, everybody has had it, so you have antibodies. Well, that's not the point. That is by far not the point. Just because you have antibodies doesn't mean, A, that you can't be a carrier and infect other people, and B, you're a member of society, and getting other people sick because you are careless and carefree, cavalier about your health is antisocial. It is damn near the definition of being antisocial, but you are part of a society. If you don't care about your fellow man, then go live out in the hills. But you have to have respect for other human beings. And there are many people that are young, the elderly, immunocompromised, etc. And you can kill them with a sneeze. And COVID isn't gone. Herd immunity is an absurd term because there is no such thing. There are still people, lives at stake. You may not care. The herd immunity comes from animals. We may be self-defining as humans, but we are still we are cognizant of our existence. We are conscious of we are sentient beings. So herd immunity shouldn't apply to us. We're not animals in the same sense. Wear a mask, get vaccinated, have respect for your fellow person. There's your soapbox for the day. This is a New York Times article, and I'm trying to see who it was written by. Apoorva Mandavili. And I think it's actually a podcast. Yeah, you'll have to listen to it. It says 3 in 5 Americans have been infected. What does that mean for immunity and for the future of the pandemic? You'll have to watch it. It's part of the daily. And I listen to it regularly. My problem with this is that it completely belies the fact that just because it says most of us, well, 60% is technically most, but it's still a time limited defense against the coronavirus. You can get it again. It may not be as bad, but you can get it again, and you can give it to children, you can give it to the elderly, you can give it to the immunocompromised, you can give it to somebody else. And so regardless of it being 60%, and that is some pretty general data correlation there, you can still, you need to not think of this as, well, 60%, so it doesn't matter. You will regret that when you get it and you give it to your kid and both of you become long haulers. I'm going to continue on. The next article is in the Daily News Show. That's this show. And the NATO chief says Finland, Sweden could join quite quickly. I think that is awesome. I think everybody should join NATO and defend against autocrats and plutocrats and theocrats and fascism and whatnot. All of the news lately is just sending me onto the soapbox. Let me pause this. I don't typically play video. Anyway, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says that Finland and Sweden would be embraced with open arms should they decide to join the 30-nation military organization and could become members quite quickly. This is an article over at ABC News, written by Lauren Cook from Associated Press. And I think that that would be great. I think we have to have a united front against countries that are just haphazardly invading. But I also think that there is a reality here that the United States has invaded countries for questionable reasons, and there is a lot of public buy-in. I am not one to buy in. Again, we can talk about it more. The next article is in Order of the Grape, the price of beer at every major league baseball stadium right now, and it's an infographic. It says opening day has come and gone, and America's favorite pastime is back in full swing. If you ask us, beer and baseball go together like peanut butter and jelly, but unlike the budget breakfast staple, enjoying a beer can cost nearly $12. So this is over at vinepair.com. It's written by Katie Brown. The art that you see on the screen is created by Ariella Basson. I think she's the in-house artist. And there is a list. It's the fan cost index increased by $9.75 for a family of 4 in 2021. A 4.5% gain over the previous year. That was led predominantly by increasing beer prices. Last year, the average small beer commanded $6.72 versus $6.16 the previous year, a 9.1% increase. That marks the largest year-over-year gain in 20 years. Again, it's all profiteering. During a pandemic, trying to recoup the losses over the last 2 years. So check that out. New York Mets, $11.75 for a small beer. If you want a lot of beer for $3, go to the Colorado Rockies. And the cheapest beer by ounce is Boston Red Sox, apparently. Anyway, go over to VinePair and check it out. And ultimately, the last article for today, and I'm cutting it really short today, is over at the Order of the Grape. and it's Wine 101, American Wine Regions, Sonoma Deep Dive. This too is over at VinePair. It says this episode of Wine 101 is sponsored by J Vineyards and Winery. That's their marketing, not mine. And they have this series called Wine 101. So let's go over there and I'll introduce you to it, and then I'll just end for the day. This is written by VinePair staff, and you can go and check it out. It is a podcast, and that's pretty much all I can really say about it. There's a conversation on the website, there like a transcript, but it says, "What's going on, wine lovers? Welcome to VinePair's Wine 101 podcast." Adam Teeter, CEO of VinePair, and they went to Sonoma and Napa for a week to get a deep dive into the amazingly famous regions to see what it's like being there and drinking there. Let's deep dive. So go and check out that podcast, Wine 101 Sonoma Deep Dive. Apparently they're in season 3, episode 17. So that's all I'll end with for today. I know it's a really short day, but I've got a meeting that I need to strike up immediately. So thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate you coming, and I'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And that's that. Thanks again. I'm Mayor Watt from ohmTown. Take care. Bye-bye.